change yourself and not the world. Long ago, people lived happily under the rule of a king. The people of the kingdom were very happy as they led a very prosperous life with an abundance of wealth and no misfortunes. Once, the king decided to go visiting places of historical importance and pilgrim centers at distant places. He decided to travel by foot to interact with his people. People of distant places were very happy to have a conversation with their king. They were proud that their king had a kind heart. After several weeks of travel, the king returned to the palace. He was quite happy that he had visited many pilgrim centers and witnessed his people leading a prosperous life. However, he had one regret. He had intolerable pain in his feet as it was his first trip by foot covering a long distance. He complained to his ministers that the roads weren't comfortable and that they were very stony. He could not tolerate the pain. He said that he was very much worried about the people who had to walk along those roads as it would be painful for them too. Considering all this, he ordered his servants to cover the roads in the whole country with leather so that the people of his kingdom can walk comfortably. Finally, a wise man from the ministry came to the king and said that he had another idea. The king asked what the alternative was. The minister said, instead of covering the roads with leather, why don't you just have a piece of leather cut in appropriate shape to cover your feet? The king was very much surprised by his suggestion and applauded the wisdom of the minister. He ordered a pair of leather shoes for himself and requested all his countrymen also to wear shoes. Moral: instead of trying to change the world, we should try to change ourselves.
A merchant and his donkey. One beautiful spring morning, a merchant loaded his donkey with bags of salt to go to the market in order to sell the salt. The merchant and his donkey were walking along together. They had not walked far when they reached a river on the way. Unfortunately, the donkey slipped and fell into the river. As it scrambled up the bank of the river, it noticed that the bags of salt loaded on his back had become lighter. There was nothing the merchant could do except return home, where he loaded his donkey with more bags of salt. As they reached the slippery river bank again, the donkey fell into the river, this time deliberately, thus the salt was wasted again. By now the merchant knew the donkey's trick. He wanted to teach the animal a lesson. As he returned home the second time with the donkey, the merchant loaded bags of sponges on its back. The duo set out on their trip to the market a third time. On reaching the river, the donkey very cleverly fell into the water again. But now, instead of the load becoming lighter, it became heavier. The merchant laughed at the donkey and said, "You foolish donkey, your trick has been discovered. You should know that you cannot fool anyone too many times." Strong or weak? There was a proud teak tree in the forest. He was tall and strong. There was a small herb next to the tree. The teak tree said, "I am very handsome and strong. No one can defeat me." Hearing this, the herb replied, "Dear friend, too much pride is harmful. Even the strong will fall one day." The teak ignored the herb's words. He continued to praise himself. A strong wind blew. The teak stood firmly. Even when it rained, the teak stood strong by spreading its leaves. During these times, the herb bowed low. The teak made fun of the herb. One day, there was a storm in the forest. The herb bowed low, as usual. The teak did not want to bow. The storm kept growing stronger. The teak could no longer bear it. He felt his strength giving way. He tried his best to stand upright, but in the end, he fell down. That was the end of the proud tree. When everything was calm again, the herb stood straight. He looked around. He saw that the proud teak had fallen. Moral: pride goes before a fall.